Hello and welcome to this tutorial on configuring password encryption on Cisco routers and switches. By default, passwords are stored in clear text in the router or switch configuration file. So any telnet VTY passwords, a console password, the enable password, and even passwords for usernames are all visible to anyone who has access to the configuration. So that's a bit of a problem because you want to make these boxes as secure as possible, make no assumptions. So we want to know how to encrypt these passwords. So we're going to start off and look at the power of encryption available to us. There are two different types with different levels of security. And then we'll go ahead and check out the service password encryption command. And then we'll go ahead and jump into some actual configuration examples. So let's get started. So the first thing to note about encryption is not all encryption methods are the same or equal. That is the main point to walk away with here. So we'll start off by looking at Type 7. Type 7 encryption is good enough to hide a password, but the algorithm used to do it is relatively weak. It's not very complicated, it's not very strong. So that means it's relatively easy to crack. If you don't believe me, go ahead and Google Cisco password crack, and you can take one of these Type 7 encrypted passwords, put it in, and it will decipher it for you. It's that simple. Unfortunately, the service password encryption command uses Type 7 encryption. So you're getting some protection, but you're not getting the best in the world. If somebody just looks at the configuration file and it has been encrypted using this command, they won't be able to tell what your passwords are just by looking at it. But if they're able to copy that configuration and then try to crack it later on using some tools, well, that's possible. So keep that in mind. The other type of encryption is known as Type 5, and this also hides a password, but it uses a much more robust and a stronger mathematical function. And if you've heard of MD5, you'll be a little bit familiar with this Type 5 encryption. And so what happens here is an MD5 hash value is created, and it's a long string of characters, and it's much stronger and not as easy to crack. So you've got those two types. And so let's take a look at the command itself. So here it is, service password encryption. There are no parameters to go along with it. And when you issue this command, just be aware of two things. The first thing is all existing passwords in your configuration automatically get encrypted. So if you have console passwords or telnet passwords or any username passwords, they all automatically become encrypted. That's a good thing. However, there's an exception here. If you're using an enable secret password, which uses the Type 5, that does not get changed to a Type 7, so it remains a Type 5, and that's a good thing. The second point is any new passwords going forward will automatically be encrypted as well. So if you create a new username and a password, it will be encrypted after you enter it. So those are the two results of using this command. If in the future you decide to remove this command, and we'll show you how to do that in the examples coming up, just be aware that any passwords that are currently on there that are encrypted, when you remove the command, the encryption stays. So those passwords will remain encrypted until you change them. So if you have a username and there's an encrypted password, you remove the service password encryption command, it remains encrypted. And then if you go ahead and change that username password, then it will not be encrypted. So that encryption just stays on. That's just something to note. It could be a little bit confusing, but if you know this, then you'll know why it's happening that way. Here we are at a router command prompt, and I'll start off by showing you my current configuration, and I have just a console password configured. It's hello. And I have a VTY password configured, and that's hello as well. So right now we have no encryption. Let's go ahead and add encryption. So we'll go into configuration mode and service password. I tab to get the auto completion. And I'll show you the question mark. There are no parameters available for this command. Let's enter that, and now let's go ahead and take a look at our configuration. And you can see we have encryption. So line console 0, password, and it tells you 7, which is Type 7 that we talked about, and then the encrypted value. And you can see the same thing now for the VTY password. So let's go ahead and add a username and see what happens. And we'll call this user Fred, And password, we'll just use bye. And if we take a look at the running configuration, you can see username Fred, password type 7, and it's encrypted. You can also see on here the enable secret, and that you see that 5 there, that's telling you it's a type 5. So like we mentioned, by enabling service password encryption, the type 5 was not changed to type 7, and yet our new username is using the type 7. So let's now go ahead and remove our password encryption. So we just use the no form of that, no service password encryption. And if we look at our configuration now, you can see we now have removed the command. It remains in there, but the no is in front of it. However, look at the username Fred. Like we mentioned, it's still encrypted. And if we go ahead and look at the line and VTY passwords, just like we said, they are still encrypted as well. So the encryption remains. And if we now use, let's say we want to change Fred's password. So username Fred, password, and we'll make it hello. And we check out the running configuration. Now you can see we have Fred's password, and we can see it. The 0, which used to be 7, indicates clear text, and that's exactly what we have. We have a clear text representation of the password. Anyone can see it. Okay, so to summarize what we went over, we introduced the service password encryption command. To remove that command, just enter no service password encryption. We talked about 2 types of encryption, type 7, which is easy to crack, it's pretty weak, and then type 5, which is stronger and not so easy. And then we talked about the effects of issuing the command, how passwords are encrypted, both the existing ones and then going forward. And then we talked about if you remove the command, the encryption remains. And that's it. That's everything you need to know about using password encryption on Cisco routers and switches. Thanks for watching.